Thank you, Bob. During the question and answer session yesterday, we had a good many excellent questions, I thought, but nobody asked the really crucial question. Are you still a Cincinnati Reds fan? And of course the answer to that question is yes. How are the Reds going to do this year? That's a question I don't want you to ask, okay? Instead of that, therefore, let's get down to the important business of the morning. My title is, once again, James 2. I like to stop in the second chapters because the further you go, the more you have to know. Once again, James 2. What else can I possibly say on a passage on which I have written so much? However, if I have nothing left to say, it's not because I've exhausted the passage. It's because I've exhausted my knowledge about the passage. But this morning I do have something new to say. In case you are concerned, I'm not about to shift back toward the traditional view of James 2. That view has bedeviled the church for too long, and the sooner everybody forgets it, the better. Unfortunately, they probably won't all forget it till after the rapture. But I am not moving back toward the traditional view. If anything, I am moving farther away. Before preparing this morning's paper, I looked over the commentary on James 2 that I wrote for the GES Society. I don't think I'm going to contradict anything that is found in the commentary. However, I do think I'm going to say something the commentary doesn't say. In fact, I think I'm going to say something quite important for a fuller comprehension of James chapter 2. Part 1, the lifestyle error. In grace circles, I think we understand that justification by works is not a condition attached to justification by faith. Justification by works is a separate consideration. To be sure, in order to experience it, we need to be justified by faith. But it is not an automatic outcome of justification by faith. On the other hand, if you ask a GES member to define justification by works, he might say something like this: we are justified by works when our lives exhibit the reality of our faith. A definition like this contains an implicit error. In oral communication, I have probably made that error myself. The mistake is to think that a general lifestyle of good works produces justification by works. Today, I'm going to maintain that James himself would be amazed that we got such an idea out of his text. In my judgment, James knows nothing of such an idea. Here I think we can detect the subtle influence of the contemporary debate about the significance of our lifestyle. To some, a godly lifestyle is a necessary product of regenerating faith. To grace people, it is a way of manifesting our relationship to God. But when we conclude that a general lifestyle of holiness justifies us by works, either before God or before men, we are not speaking the language of James 2. Part 2. When and how? Let's begin by asking a simple question. James tells us that both Abraham and Rahab were justified by works. The question then is this: when and how were Abraham and Rahab justified by works? As a matter of fact, James answers this question explicitly in both cases. Listen to his familiar words. James 2:24. Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? James 2:25. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? Did you hear anything about lifestyle in these verses? If you did, your hearing is better than mine. I'm sorry, folks. It's just not there. What is there? Very simple. In both cases, we have the precise occasion on which these famous people were justified by works, and we have the precise reason why they were justified. Lifestyle is totally irrelevant to James's idea. Abraham was justified by works when he offered his son Isaac on the altar. Rahab was justified by works when she received the spies and sent them safely away. That is what James says, and that is all he says. And what he says is enough. Part 3, a series of actions. Bear in mind that in both of these Old Testament stories, the obedience that Abraham and Rahab exhibited involved a series of actions. Think of Abraham's case. According to Genesis 22:2, God spoke to Abraham as follows: Take now your son, your only son Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. Notice the things that Abraham is asked to do. Number 1, take your son. Number 2, go to the land of Moriah. Number 3, offer him as a burnt offering. Number 4, do it on the mountain that I point out to you. Please remember that the Greek word ergon means a deed or an action. And I'm going to cite a brief quotation from the most recent edition of the Standard Greek Lexicon, known by the acronym BDAG, BDAG. To use BDAG's semantic domain, an ergon is, quote, that which displays itself in activity of any kind, end of quote. Therefore, a series of erga works were involved in Abraham's obedience to God on this occasion. The same is true of Rahab. James, in fact, makes this explicit. Rahab did 2 basic deeds, 2 erga, on the occasion in question. These were, number 1, she received the messengers. And number 2, she sent them out another way. The bottom line is the same in both cases. The works James has in mind were the erga that Abraham and Rahab did on the occasions that James is referring to. These are the works by which they were justified. These and no others. That is why I say that James has nothing whatsoever to say about the general lifestyle of Abraham and Rahab. If we claim that lifestyle is the point, we are making a claim that the text contradicts. These 2 Old Testament worthies were justified by works performed on one occasion and one occasion only. Of course, we know a lot about Abraham's lifestyle in general. So it is easy to read that idea into the text here, even though we do so without any warrant from James. But Rahab is another case altogether. What do we know about Rahab's lifestyle after Joshua 2? The answer to that question is nothing at all. Clearly, from James' standpoint, the works in question were performed on the occasions he is describing. Part 4. correct connections. Please keep in mind another simple fact. It is often overlooked. The fact is this. James refers to justification by works only in James 2:20-26. Please notice the range of verses. I did not say James 2:14-26, but James 2:20-26. Here and only here in his epistle does James refer to this idea. I admit to you today that it is a serious interpretive mistake to think that justification by works is in any sense part of the main theme of this epistle.